Korean natural farming has the potential to transform your garden this year. It is one of the most promising hopes for the regenerative agriculture movement. But whereas Korean farmers and gardeners have readily applied its principles, Westerners like myself have been hesitant to embrace it with open arms. And I believe that a lot of that is due to a lack of clarity regarding the principles, functions, and doctrine of natural farming. So I wanted to take the opportunity to break down what I've come to understand about KNF, Korean natural farming, in one cohesive perspective. And then I'd like to offer some suggestions for how you might start to think about ways that you can apply these concepts to your unique context. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Taylor. This is my 5th year experimenting with natural farming techniques across 4 different gardens. And something that I've realized is that while natural farming, specifically Korean natural farming and JADAM organic farming, is complicated, there are many entry points into these practices that will be accessible for any gardener. And that's why we've created a number of free resources for anyone trying to get started. I'll be highlighting a few of these as we traverse through the 3 levels of difficulty within these techniques. You can find a link to all of these in the description below. This is going to be a pretty thorough video. We're going to cover quite a bit of ground. You might want to take some notes for future reference. And as you listen, if any or all of this is new to you, the single most important piece of advice that I can give is to take things slow. Start by incorporating one amendment into your practice at a time. Please don't feel like you have to apply everything here all at once. So first, what is natural farming and why should you be paying attention to it? Well, at its core, natural farming is a rejection of modern agriculture and an embrace of ancient wisdom. Modern agriculture prioritizes speed and efficiency, utilizes isolated, synthetically derived nutrients to feed plants, whereas natural farming embraces natural processes, sustainability, and the complexity of nature. It also appreciates plants and animals' need for a much wider spectrum of nutrients. Each of these dichotomies could be its own video, but in essence, what many are coming to realize, and what many have known for quite some time now, is that there's a particular harm being done to the earth through many of our modern agricultural practices. So as someone who is concerned for the well-being of our planet, I really believe that natural farming offers some incredible paths forward to restoring biodiversity, ecology, and the resilience that the Earth once had. Maybe after watching this video, you'll feel similar. So let's take a look at issue number 1 and we'll see what solutions Korean natural farming has for you in your garden. The first problem with conventional agriculture is that it has taught us gardeners and farmers that there are only 3 nutrients needed to support plant health. We've got nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, also referred to as NPK. If you've ever bought a bag or a bottle of fertilizer from the store, you'll notice that these 3 nutrients are expressed in 3 numbers, known as the NPK ratio. This ratio is seen as the gold standard of plant and soil health. Now, I'm not saying that these 3 nutrients aren't important for plants. They are. They're called the big 3 for a reason. The problem with only applying these is immediately apparent, however, when you realize that there are a few more than 3 nutrients that a plant relies on for growth. This is debated, and the number is probably higher, but most will agree that there are at least 17 essential nutrients that support plant growth. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, of course, but also sulfur, calcium, magnesium, iron, copper, manganese, zinc, boron, molybdenum, chlorine, nickel, and not to mention carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So depending on when you see this video, we'll have another video outlining the effects of simply dumping NP and K on your soil. But suffice it to say, if you apply these synthetic fertilizers, you will likely experience a short-time win in the garden, followed by subsequent seasons of reliance on these expensive and environmentally suspect fertilizers. Initially, your plants will perk up, but because you neglect to tend to its other nutrient needs, your soil will start to rebel before long, and microorganisms will die off, leaving your plants in need of a constant attention and highly susceptible to disease. So what does Korean natural farming say in response to this issue? Well, there are a number of things. The most simple liquid amendment KNF offers is a substance called fermented plant juice. This is a liquid that, when made right, contains a wide range of important nutrients that your plants need. To make FPJ, you weigh out equal parts by weight, brown sugar, and fresh green plant debris. You can use almost any plant, but there are some that are definitely particularly rich in micronutrients. We like to use comfrey for its wide spectrum of nutrients, but other dynamic accumulators like nettle and yarrow will work. You could also use other things like bananas or banana peels, garlic, legumes, even weeds and grass. And once you've weighed out equal parts brown sugar and plant debris, mix them together thoroughly so that all the parts of the plant debris are covered in brown sugar. Then pop it in a jar with a breathable lid and let it ferment for 1 week. Then you strain off the liquid and boom, you got fermented plant juice. This stuff utilizes the yeasts and bacteria on the plant debris to consume and convert the nutrients found in the plant debris. Now, along with nutrients, plants contain rich amounts of growth hormones that are also preserved and extracted in the fermentation process. These hormones aid in cell division and elongation to help with plant growth. And they're all naturally derived when fermented this way. Alongside this is a sort of JADAM organic farming equivalent, JADAM liquid fertilizer, which we've got a free resource, link in the description on how to make this. Essentially, you're putting plant debris, water, and leaf mold soil in a container, letting it ferment anaerobically, and then harvesting the liquid fertilizer by straining out the solids. Another extract at the beginner level is a simple mineral extract. You can extract valuable minerals from bones, eggshells, and shellfish shells by simply soaking these in brown rice vinegar or apple cider vinegar for several weeks. These extracts contain more of the wide spectrum of nutrients that plants need to thrive. Vinegar is also used as a liquid amendment on its own alongside these other inputs to activate beneficial microorganisms in the soil. We've also got sea salt, or better yet, sea water. This is another one of these simple ingredients that is used to provide microbes and minerals to the soil. And finally, lactic acid bacteria native to your specific environment can very easily be caught, cultured, and applied to soil and plants in the garden. We've got a video describing this process, and it sort of sits at the top end of difficulty within this first level of K&F inputs. To summarize the process, to catch these LABs, you wash white rice with unchlorinated water, collect the cloudy water without the rice, and allow it to ferment for a few days with a breathable cover. After it's attracted the LABs, you feed it milk and allow the bacteria to continue to multiply. Once the milk has separated into curds and whey, strain out the whey, and there you go. You got fridge-stable source of native lactic acid bacteria that can be sprayed alongside your other amendments. These guys help protect plants from disease by crowding out space in the soil and on leaves and stems of plants. Now, if all of that is new to you, I'd recommend that you pick up one of these to start with and see how that works for you. Then you can kind of move on to the others one at a time. All right, on to the advanced level of K&F inputs. Something that conventional farming utilizes to create soil tilth is mechanical tillage. Now, tillage is perhaps one of the most surefire ways to devastate soil biology and create increasingly compact soil. Ironically, the process of repeated mechanical tillage produces the opposite desired effect in the long run. When soil is broken up by big machines, it is temporarily broken up, allowing plant roots to find their way down into the soil. But several things happen at the same time. First thing is that the soil structure is obliterated, meaning that when it rains, water lands on the soil, and without all the canals and mini pathways in the natural structure of the soil, the earth dissolves and then settles. This is a very rudimentary explanation of how compaction happens when tilling occurs, but you get the picture. Second thing that happens when tillage occurs is that microorganisms are massacred. Bear with me on this. An average soil microbe may be 1 micrometer in height. The shallowest mechanical tiller may churn up the top 6 inches of soil, meaning that microbes 6 inches deep are flung upward in an instant, a distance that is approximately 150,000 times their height. For perspective, imagine yourself being flung up 200 miles into the sky within a few moments. Now, microbes are resilient. There are billions, trillions of them around us, on us, in us. We have to disrupt the ones that live in the soil anytime that we plant a seed or pull out a plant from the ground. But chronic disruption is devastating to these guys. Year after year, fields are tilled, most of them considerably deeper than 6 inches, and microbes in the soil simply can't survive. Soil microbes can't sit on the soil surface. The sun will kill them quickly. Now, what does natural farming have to say about this? Well, as a basic tenet, tillage is a process that is implemented sparingly, if ever, and if it is used, it's used to till the first time that a new garden bed or strip is made. After that soil has been tilled for the first time, it is never tilled again. The second tenet here is mulch, mulch, and mulch. Mulch is one of the most basic observable phenomena in nature. Trees drop their leaves and mulch the soil around their roots. Mulch is an absolute essential for any growing soil. It's clothing for the soil. It helps microbes and microbiota in the soil by shielding them from the sun. It also helps sustain moisture levels in the soil that are essential for both plants and soil biology. Now, beyond these two practices, there is an incredible liquid input that can be made that over time will actually improve soil structure and tilth without any need for mechanical intervention. So far, we've been talking mostly about Korean natural farming techniques developed by a man named Han Kyu Cho. Now Cho's son, Youngsung Cho, developed an offshoot of his father's practices, and he calls it JADAM organic farming. The cornerstone of Youngsung Cho's methodology is in the JADAM Microbial solution, or JMS. Now JMS it's only made with a few ingredients, but it can be a little bit finicky because it relies on specific timing, hence I'm categorizing it with the advanced level of inputs. To make JMS, you need only 4 ingredients. Unchlorinated water, sea salt, a carbohydrate source, typically a potato is used, but rice or any other starch can be used, and finally leaf mold soil. Now leaf mold soil can be found anywhere that trees can be found, but preferably these trees are growing in an undisturbed area, undisturbed by humans. The leaves that fall from a tree each winter land around the base of the tree and provide a shelter for microorganisms in the soil. The leaves decompose over time and break down into nutrients that the microbes can then retrieve and re-impart to the tree's root system. Collecting the soil that lays underneath years, maybe decades of accumulated leaf litter is the first step toward making JMS. The microbes that exist in this soil are perfectly suited to survive in your exact climate, which is why it is essential that you collect leaf mold soil only from your region. Otherwise, you will be culturing microbes that won't thrive as well in your garden's ecosystem. We've got a free downloadable recipe for JMS that you can take as a reference, but here's the gist. Take your leaf mold soil, boiled and cooled potato, and sea salt, and strain it all through a paint strainer or a cheesecloth into a 5-gallon bucket filled with dechlorinated water. Once the particles have filled the water in the bucket, allow the brew to sit for as little as 36 hours or as long as several days. What you'll start to see happen is the result of microorganisms from the soil feeding on the carbohydrates in the potato, and you'll see them multiplying like crazy. You'll see intense bubblage, almost like foam, on the surface of the water. Once this foam is at its peak amount, it's time to apply it to your soil and your plants, depending on what you're trying to do. If you're using this as a soil drench with no plants in the ground, you can pour it straight on like this, undiluted. If you've got plants in there, dilute it 1 to 10 minimum with dechlorinated water. You can use this as a foliar spray as well to treat plant disease and keep overall healthy immune strength for your plants. But where JMS really shines is in its ability to create incredible soil tilth in previously compacted areas. This of course does not happen overnight, but in our experience, a single year of consistent JMS application, 3 to 4 times a month during the growing season, will have an incredible transformative effect for your soil. The saturation of microbes into the soil means that you've got a zillion little helpers working their way through the soil, creating pathways and channels for plant roots to descend and for nutrients to be delivered. JMS is definitely an advanced natural farming technique, but it is well worth the effort to figure out. Additionally, on the advanced level, I have a few more liquid amendments that I consider a little bit harder to make, but worth the investment. If you've mastered the first level, definitely give these a try. OHN is the first one. This stands for Oriental Herbal Nutrient, and this is basically a tincture made out of 5 immune-strengthening herbs: garlic, ginger, licorice root, cinnamon bark, and angelica root. We'll link to a recipe download in the description, but you're basically putting these herbs in jars and adding vodka to extract the nutrients over the course of about 3 months. This is done in a pretty specific way, so if you're looking for a way to bring overall boosted immunity to your plants, check out our video on making OHN. FFAA, or fermented fish amino acids, is another amendment in the advanced tier. This is basically a super fertilizer made out of decomposed fish waste. I know, sounds yummy. To make this highly potent fertilizer, you'll combine equal parts fish waste, bones, heads, skin, organs, scraps, and brown sugar. You mix it up real good and let it ferment undisturbed for a good long while, at the bare minimum a few months, and preferably 6 months so that the fish is fully dissolved. Then you just strain it out and use it diluted 1 to 1,000. Finally, at the advanced tier, you've got certain combinations of kind of previously mentioned ingredients to make things like maintenance spray and seed starting solution. The maintenance spray is just OHN, FPJ, and vinegar, preferably brown rice or apple cider. The OHN is diluted 1 to 1,000, and the FPJ and vinegars are diluted 1 to 500 in water. Then this is sprayed on plants once a week or as needed. It's also worth mentioning that all of these applications should be tested and adjusted to figure out what works for you and your particular plants. If everything's going great, maybe apply a little less. If your plants need a boost of energy, try increasing your maintenance solution application. Okay, we've made it through the advanced tier of natural farming inputs. If you've made it this far, congrats, because we're now going to get into the expert tier. These amendments are things that took me the longest to really get to and to figure out because of the highly technical nature of making them and because of the trial and error process involved in making them. Finally, just because I put these in the expert level doesn't mean that these inputs aren't totally possible for you to figure out. And they're actually some of the greatest ones that will achieve the greatest results in your garden. So first, let's talk about the conventional side of things. It's no secret that conventional agriculture is laden with pesticides, rodenticides, fungicides, herbicides, and really every other kind of side, which just means to cut off or kill. These are so ubiquitous that even so-called organically grown fruits and veggies contain certified organic sprays that are supposedly less harmful for human consumption. Now, here's what I'll say. Chemicals are not inherently bad for ecosystems. Some chemicals are naturally occurring and dissolve in water, leaving minimal impact on ecosystems. There are also legitimate needs to mitigate plant disease, especially when whole crops could go under and leave you with nothing in the garden, or much worse, people starving who were reliant on that crop. So I'm not saying that farmers and gardeners who use pesticides are criminals. A lot of the time they're just trying to save the food that they're growing. The problem is not so much that we're using chemicals. It is the amount and the frequency of usage of these compounds is more like we're engaging in chemical warfare. The repeated usage season after season of harmful chemicals is devastating for the longevity of the soil, and it's devastating to our health as humans. We need a different path forward, which is why I find this tier of natural farming techniques so inspiring. What does natural farming have to do to offer as a solution to the need for pesticides? Well, JADAM contains an incredible invention entitled JADAM Natural Pesticide, very creative name, that contains 4 essential ingredients. So let's talk through it. J and P consists of the JADAM Microbial solution, the JADAM Herbal solution, the JADAM Natural Sulfur, and the JADAM Wetting Agent that binds them all together. These 4 components come together to create a seriously incredible solution to plant disease and pest pressure. We'll start with the most important factor, the surfactant. JADAM Wetting Agent. This is a sort of glue that binds the other things together and helps them actually cling to your plants so that they can have a lasting effect. Making the JADAM Wetting Agent is basically like making soap, but rather than utilizing an external heat source, it relies on the chemical reaction between water and potassium hydroxide to create high temperatures. Please follow our complete recipe for this in our video on JADAM Natural Pesticides. This is in the expert category for me because you do need some specific equipment and materials to do this right. It's also got a degree of risk because you need to be careful to not splash the hot chemicals on yourself as you're mixing, and you don't want to breathe in the toxic fumes. So please be careful with this one. That said, once the chemical bonds have been formed, this wetting agent is completely plant safe and soil safe. It doesn't harm soil biology at all, it fully biodegrades in water, and it causes no lasting negative effects to your garden. If you make this and combine it with the microbial solution, you will have a powerful plant spray that you can apply foliarly to your plants. Anytime you apply the wetting agent, you want to do it in the evening or in the early morning before the sun is high, because you don't want the sun to evaporate the solution off of the plant leaves and stems of your plants. The JADAM Sulfur is made in a similar way with a chemical reaction that generates high temperatures, even higher than when we're making the wetting agent. When you mix sulfur powder, sodium hydroxide, and water, you're able to reach temperatures of 230 degrees Fahrenheit and above, reaching the melting point of sulfur and thereby dissolving it into the solution. Now, this sulfur is a powerful antifungal compound that also imparts the beneficial nutrient of, you guessed it, sulfur to your plants. The JADAM Natural Sulfur has been shown to save plants from powdery mildew, blight, anthracnose, and a number of other diseases. The reason that it has no effect on the beneficial microbes on your plants and in the soil has to do with the way that sulfur is metabolized by pathogenic microbes. The sulfur compounds are able to disrupt their metabolic functions and stop the disease from spreading, even reducing the effect to nothing. Depending on when you're watching this video, we'll have another video detailing exactly how to make the JADAM Sulfur. The final component of the JADAM Natural Pesticide suite is the JADAM Herbal solution. And this is basically where you make a solution out of an herb that is irritating to pests. The most recommended one in Young-Sung Cho's book is ginkgo berry. But we've had success using a pepper garlic spray, and there are many other options you have that Cho details in his book all about natural pesticides. Putting the wetting agent, the microbial solution, natural sulfur, and herbal solution together makes an incredible natural pesticide and fungicide. This actually serves as a legitimate alternative to synthetic pesticides and fungicides that harm soil biology and that stay in the soil for long periods of time. Now, whereas the JADAM natural pesticide is a great treatment and response to unhealthy plants, the root problems still need to be addressed. Sometimes soil is so depleted that drastic intervention needs to be made. I mentioned back in the advanced tier that the foundation of JADAM organic farming is the microbial solution. In KNF, the granddaddy of JMS is IMO, which stands for Indigenous Microorganisms. Now, similar to JMS, IMO utilizes microbes that live beneath the leaf litter in natural forests, but the way it cultures these microbes is in a different way. There are 4 main stages of cultivation, followed up with an additional optional 5th stage and a liquid form. We have a whole video detailing how to get started as a beginner with IMO, so if you're interested in going for it, you definitely want to check that out. We also have a free ebook that outlines the whole process with recipe cheat sheets and references, so please check that out as well. As always, we'll put a link in the description. Now, to give you a little teaser of all that's involved in this process, here's the basic framework. To culture IMOs, you will start by putting a box of cooked rice in the forest underneath the leaf litter, where you can see visible signs of mycelium, which is just active fungal development. After waiting a few days, depending on your weather, you'll retrieve your box of rice to hopefully find that microbes have cultured it and woven a web of mycelium through the rice to form a sort of tempeh-like texture. Once you have this, you break it up into small pieces and add equal parts by weight brown sugar, and then you seal it up in a jar or a crock. This preserves the IMO1 collection and makes IMO2. From here, you'll introduce your IMO2 to a new substrate. There are a lot of options for this, but basically you want to do it with something that is affordable and local to your area, even something that you foraged. The common substitutes are rice bran, wheat bran, and oats, but you can use any good carbohydrate source. Mix this with a carbon source like brown leaves or wood chips, culture it with the IMO2, and monitor the temperature to keep it from going too high. In this phase, you're helping the microorganisms develop and diversify, so you don't want to get temperatures above 120 if possible. Once your pile is heated up and cooled down, you've got a shelf-stable IMO3. IMO3 is then introduced to the native soil of your farm or garden by mixing it with equal parts soil from your land. The same process will happen. You will get the pile to heat up, cool down, and there you've got IMO4. And then this is quickly applied to your soil and immediately covered with mulch at a rate of about 1,200 pounds per acre. But even a little bit can go a long way to restoring incredible microdiversity in your soil. IMO is definitely a more complicated process than JADAM microbial solution, but it also forms an incredible regenerative soil network of microbes that, in theory, over years of repeated application can create complete systems that work on their own and don't need further amendment. This is kind of the dream. Again, if that sounds like a lot to you, take your time. This is meant to be a primer, not an immediate set of action steps that you need to start all at once. Save this video for reference. And guys, that is my breakdown of the 3 levels of expertise for Korean natural farming. If you made it this far, thanks for listening to me yammer on. I am really passionate about learning about this stuff, how it works, what its implications are for future gardeners and farmers. And I'm excited to see how these techniques kind of get implemented over the rest of this century. We really need some solutions to the devastation being done to the earth, and this is definitely a path that shows promise. If you found this video helpful, you'd probably find some of our free resources helpful as well, so please take a look at those again. Links in the description, and we will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.